And coordinator there. So yeah, well, Greg's setting up just to say thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you for having me. I know it's such a nice Glasgow evening. It's so sunny outside that it's so nice to see people here in person, and hopefully those online are getting to see a little bit of sunshine, maybe in your gardens. So it was probably about a year ago that Greg approached me to come and speak tonight for the PWI. So it seems like such a long time ago, and actually it's been years since I've spoken at an event. I can say that confidently because I've not done anything post COVID lockdown rules. So this is my first event for a very long time. As Greg said, I'm an engineer, and I've kept it very simple on my first slide there to say, yes, engineer. All the other bells and whistles that come with it, you can ignore that just now, and just for tonight, I'm Hazel engineer. And the image that I've got there is of the handshake. I actually struggled to think about what kind of image do I want to have in my first slides. Are we going to have a whole lot of people like trying to smash some barriers, or is it going to be women like doing something there? But I thought the handshake was quite a good one. It bringing people together, because breaking down barriers shouldn't just be for one group of people to do or one person to do. It's a kind of collective thing. And it also just reminded me at the very beginning of my career, whenever I was in meetings with a client or with a supplier, and everybody was shaking hands at the end of the meeting, there was always that awkward thing. Should we shake Hazel's hand? I was generally the only woman in the room, and it was just always a bit weird. And I'm sure some of you have had that kind of experience post-COVID. Oh, do we shake hands or not now? So yeah, things have changed a lot since then. That I'm quite comfortable to like shake hands, whatever. That's introduced there. Before I go on to the kind of main part of what I want to get across today, I thought I would share what the PWI says about diversity and inclusion. So the PWI vision is that a diverse and inclusive rail infrastructure community that excels in delivering safe, efficient and sustainable railways. I'm not sure if you were aware of that vision. How much does that get talked about in the organisation? Is it a well-known thing?
I think perhaps not enough.
Okay. Yeah. So I found that quite easily on your website, but yeah, that's exactly the kind of, when I'm talking to people about diversity and inclusion, there are things written down about what it's to be, or what the company or the government legislation wants, but not everybody's aware of it or is actively engaged with it. So that statement there is quite a good one for me, because it lets me describe a little bit what I want to talk about today. So a diverse and inclusive community. So you could have a diverse, if you've got a diverse group of people, there's huge benefits you can gain from that. And McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, Financial Times have written lots of articles about diverse groups. They're generally more productive, they perform better, they make a lot more money than groups that are maybe not so diverse, and they're safer. But you can't just have a group of people that are diverse. You've got to have that engagement across the piece, and that's where the inclusion comes in. So if you think about diversity as being invited to the party, the inclusion part has been invited to dance, asked to dance. So you can have your numbers there, you can have a group of people, but everybody has to be engaged and be asked to be engaged as part of it. So huge benefits to having a diverse group of people. The other point I want to make is that in the UK, we need a lot of engineers. We actually have a shortfall of STEM professionals in the UK, STEM being science, technology, engineering, maths. and we've consistently had a shortfall for a number of years. But there's so much change in the world, certainly since I was at uni in the graduated in the early 2000s. I had a mobile phone in my last year. Nobody had a mobile phone before that. And now everybody's got a mobile phone in their pocket. All the tech that goes with it, the product design that goes into mobile phones, the apps that support your mobile phone. I mean, nobody was doing that kind of stuff when I was doing engineering at uni. So there's a huge change required. But in terms of women in engineering, there's not that tsunami of women waiting to do all these tsunami effect of women wanting to come and do all these jobs, because there's been the pipeline of women coming into engineering has been restricted in lots of different ways. So touch on that too. But before I go into that, just to give a bit of an overview of myself and some of the things that I've maybe faced in my life and career. And before I go on, I must say that I've been very fortunate. I've not had any huge barriers to overcome. I've worked with some amazing people in my career. I've been very, very lucky, and some changes to legislation have actually made it better for me, more so than maybe somebody that's 10 years older than me. I grew up playing outside a lot. I used to cycle a lot, climb trees. I had skint knees quite a lot. Grew up in the 80s, so anyone that grew up that kind of time, we had a lot of freedom. We had no mobile phones, so nobody was filming you if you made any mistakes and posting it on the internet. I had not very many female influences in my life, as in when you look at all the movies in the 80s, all the really cool movies, there's actually, it's all boys or all men. And the girls that are there are maybe like the add-ons. Or so when I think about who was influential in my childhood, probably the biggest influence were my parents. They were very supportive of a lot of things that I wanted to do. They never restricted me. And I was very, when I think about who was on the TV that I can think about, right, in the 80s we had Neighbours, and Kylie Minogue on Neighbours as Charlene Ramsey was a mechanic. And I remember thinking, well, maybe that's something that you can do. And I don't remember if there was storylines where she was, she had difficulties in that role or whatever, but I just remember, that you can do that, or we can do that. So grew up in the 80s, like I say. I was fascinated in how things worked. Wrote to Jim Fix-It to see if I could find out how to take part of TV. How did a TV work? How did a radio work? Thankfully, I never got a reply. So I just have to watch Tomorrow's World or something to find out how that works. So there we go. Left school, went to uni, and I think I've got the wrong slideshow here. So I'm sure there's a little picture, a slide with a picture of me. So let me just double check. Yeah, I think I might have the wrong slideshow. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. This is the joys of the internet. It's not. Sorry, guys. See if it's working there. Yeah. Why does it do this? Yourself
people look for apps.
So I just realised that you're looking at a picture of the PWI, and I did have a little picture of myself. So when I was about 2 years old. So I was kind of thrown me there. So pretend you're looking at me when I was 2 years old. I went to uni, was before I was at uni though, in my physics class, there was three girls in the physics class in a group of maybe 20 boys, so about just over 10% of the room. And in uni, there was maybe 6 or 7 of us, 6 or 7 girls, and the group of men, about 80. So again, we were at 10%. And my first job, graduate engineer, I went down south to work in England. Probably the biggest barrier was me coming from Scotland than anything else. So I was reminded of that quite a lot. And I went into a design office, and there was 2 women engineers, 1 women TO, and the rest, maybe 60 were men. So I was quite used to working with a whole group of men. And when I came back up to Scotland into Network Rail, I was quite surprised at how diverse it was. There was probably about 50-50 in my group of people. So it was quite a culture shock coming back to Scotland and being in Network Rail. So worked in Network Rail, had 2 children, took full maternity leaves where I had both children. I remember somebody saying to me, don't take too long, come back because your career will suffer. I was actually off for 14 months, I think it was, because my daughter was born over the Christmas period, so I had annual leave from each year. And when I came back, one of the first people I met said, "Oh God, is that 6 months already?" I made the right decision to take the time off. So yeah, took both maternity leaves, came back and worked reduced hours, worked flexibly part time. So that gives a bit of a context to where I am in the whole women in engineering and things that have taken place. I kind of think that I haven't had to deal with many barriers because I've done what I've wanted to do in my career. I've taken some time off with my children, but I know that I'm an anomaly. There's people that have had really, really hard times with employers that they've worked with, or they've lost their jobs when they've had children. Like I say, maybe women who were 10 years older than me didn't have the choice of taking a maternity leave because although it's in law, the culture of the company didn't allow that. So, but when I talk about when I start talking about legislation here now, let's have a look at the next slide. Just to go over some of the key changes in legislation over the last sort of 100 or so years. This first part here isn't legislation. It's about the Women's Engineering Society and when it was formed. Formed in 1919, and if you didn't know about the Women's Engineering Society, hopefully I've introduced you to it now, but why do you think it was formed in that year?
End of the First World War.
Yeah.
I think we're probably allowed to go to the workplace because the men weren't there and then they were probably asked to leave.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So when men went off to war, lots of women took the places of men, were working, doing engineering jobs. Quite a number of them were asked to leave and go back to looking after the household. But there were women that were able to continue, and the Women's Engineering Society was able to support them. So yeah, that's exactly why that came about. We're going to skip forward about 50 years. So the Equal Pay Act came in 1970. How well do you think that's complied with? Probably the last few years that Glasgow City Council have had to pay out a huge wad of money to women who were not paid in equal terms with the men doing the same jobs that they were doing. So I think they've had to refinance a lot of things. But for me, I think, well, look at these women didn't get paid and they've now got this money, but are they getting the interest that they would have gained in that money, or what opportunities have they missed out on? What have they not been able to pay for some of the activities that their children maybe did, or maybe go on a nice holiday, better holidays. I don't know. So I don't know if you can shut that down. It's a wee bit funky. So yeah, that was a good number of years ago, but we're still seeing some effects of people not complying. Sex Discrimination Act came in 1975, so 5 years later, and that was the first time that a woman could open a bank account in her own name or apply for a mortgage. So your mothers, grandmothers, if they're opening a bank account, had to have a man to sign for it. So that would be their father, their husband, brother. So asking for permission to have access to bank facility, and were able to apply for a mortgage. But in the same year, there was Employment Protection Act 1975, and that's when the first maternity leave legislation came in. That makes sense to me that you can really only get a mortgage if you're earning, and if you're a woman and you're going to have a child, you want to still be able to pay for that child. So mat leave covers that a little bit for you. But as it says there, for the first 15 years, only about half of working women were eligible for this maternity leave. So I think they had to work for the company for quite a long time before you were eligible. And if you're early 20s, I think a lot of women in 1975 were having children early 20s, mid 20s, you maybe don't qualify. So I do remember, so this is not long before I was born, I do remember my mum saying, oh, well, yeah, everybody you just give up your job when you got pregnant. There was mat leave, yeah, there was maternity leave. I think there was, I think we did get some, but you gave up your job. So I think she'd was probably not 6 months pregnant when she gave up her job to have me. So that's her out of the workforce. And she did return when I was about 8, so I think my wee brother was about 3. But it was a huge change to get back in and to go through the interview process. You can imagine going back and doing some exams now, but they haven't maybe studied for a long time. It's quite a big thing. We're going to move. Sorry.
Quite an eye-opener there, Hazel. Sex Discrimination Act, 1975.
Yeah.
Hate to admit it, I was working in the early 70s. I had no idea that a woman could not open a bank account on their own name.
Yeah, it's quite shocking.
That's I'm gobsmacked at that. I just didn't know that.
Yeah, my mum's told me that a few times, but when I read it, when I was doing the research for this, I read it, I was like, gosh, that's actually right. That's bizarre. So jumping forward to the Employment Act 2002, introduced paid paternity leave, which was, I don't think that's really changed. That's about two weeks paternity leave you're eligible for. That's still the same now. But the second part that I've written there shocked me. It created a new right to request flexible working for fathers and mothers. I didn't realise that it was for fathers as well. I just thought it was mothers that could request flexible working. I don't know anyone that used that right. I don't know if anyone else does around the room online.
Mother-in-law.
Your mother-in-law.
No, brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law.
Yes, no. This is quite high flyer.
Okay.
He took time off to look after their son and do all the other stuff to support him.
Okay.
Do a career more, I suppose.
Good.
It's good. It suits him as well.
That's exactly why I like
he prefers that type of thing. There's my sister who doesn't really like that kind of thing. And she really likes doing what she does for a career.
Good. And that's where you've got the choice. So I'll talk about that a little bit later, is having that choice. So it doesn't have to be one particular person doing something. Gives a lot more freedom. Personal matter. Mentioned about the Equality Act in 2010, so that brought together existing equality legislation, and so if you have a protected characteristic, then that act helps you. So that's protected characteristics are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnerships, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex and sexual orientation. And these two regulations that came in 2014, these were huge for me. So the flexible working regulations, so anyone can apply for flexible working. If you've worked for a company for 26 weeks, you can do that. That was significant for me because I was working part-time because I had children, and I used to get a lot of people saying, oh, you're not on our Friday. Oh, I wish I could do that. And it's not really something that bothered me, but it was just every time somebody said it, it was like, oh God, I'm not pulling my weight in the team. And so it affected me more than the people probably thought it did. But making it a level playing field made it easier for me to maybe chat back if anyone said anything, but I never had to do that. So that was quite nice. And the shared parental leave regulations 2014. So that's different to parental leave, paternity leave, sorry. You can share the maternity leave. So when you're a mother, you can take up to 52 weeks off. But you can share that time with the other parent. So that's really great for people in same-sex relationships, as well as for married couples, for husbands and wife. So there's something else that I wanted to mention about that one. I can't think what it was, but that was a big change for me. If we go back to the when my children were a little bit older, I got asked to support a project that I knew I wanted to up my hours for. I thought, I can't do this on the hours that I'm doing. And my husband then was able to ask for a flexible working pattern. So we were able to share that, which was great. It was great for the kids, and it was great for me as well. I'm going to come back around full circle again to the Women's Engineering Society. It was founded in 1919. They launched the International Women in Engineering Day in 2014. That's on the 23rd of June every year. So that's a campaign that brings together all the great things that women engineers do. And I'd really encourage you to get involved in that if you haven't already, even if it's just to look at some of the things that are published online. And finally, the Equality Act 2010, there was some regulations created in 2017, the Gender Pay Gap Information. So it's mandatory for all large organisations to report their gender pay gap. And that's in Great Britain, so Scotland, England and Wales. And a large organisation is anything that's over 250 employees. So I thought I would see if we, in a second, we can work out what, we can have a look at some of the companies that you work for or have worked for and what their gender pay gap is. But overall, in Great Britain, 8 out of 10 firms pay men more than women. And what does that mean? So the gender pay gap is different to equal pay. Equal pay is legal, as a legal requirement. You have to pay someone the same. You have to pay men and women the same for equal work. The same work or equal value. The gender pay gap is the difference between the average pay of men compared to the average pay of women. So if you've got a pay gap in favour of men, you're probably going to have a lot more women in the lower paid jobs in the organisation. And you can go into the BBC News to have a look to see what your company pay gap is. And there's a link there for another article that I found really interesting. So should we have a look to see a company? What do you think? Well, shout out a company name that I can check now. Oh, I know that it's 10.9% in favour of men. Another one?
Yeah, Arcadis.
Arcadis Human Resources Limited. That's what's come up. Arcadis Human Resources Limited. 25.3 in favour of men. 25.2%. Any others?
Since there's nobody here round the table from them, how about Babcock? Well, Babcock International.
We've got Babcock Aerospace, Babcock Corporate Services, or Babcock Critical Services. What do we think?
I think the answer to none of these is it.
I know.
So that we covered under one of them. I'm going to say corporate services, maybe. 19.6% in favour of men. Any others?
I don't think that Kira's one is us.
Okay.
That should be different one.
That's
Kira's.
the big cutters out at Siemens.
Right, so we've got Siemens Energy, Industrial Turbo, Siemens Energy Limited, Siemens Financial Services, Siemens Games, yeah,
Was it Motability?
Healthcare. Oh, there's loads of Siemens ones. Industrial stuff. Motability Limited.
I think that's the one, yeah.
Motability.
No, it's rail automation, dude.
Mobility Limited.
Or Siemens Mobility, yeah, but it includes trains, I think.
Mobility Limited, 22.9% in favour of men. So I took some screenshots of some of them as well in case that didn't work. Especially while I was here. Walters Resource Limited, I don't know who they are, but that number kind of made me go, oh, 38.3% in favour of men. Network Rail, 10.9% in favour of men. Walker Snacks, 37.9% in favour of women.
Oh.
Interesting. Benson's for Beds, 1.2%. That's a couple of companies I knew. Balfour BT, 24.7%. BBC, 5.9%. Amazon Data Services, 50.6% in favour of women. But then there's Amazon Online, 15.5% in favour of men. And the last one I think I picked was Smiggle. There's no gender pay gap. So anyone with kids will know what Smiggle is. It's a shop where it's got lots of shiny things in it that cost a lot of money that kids just want to have all the time. So they've got no gender pay gap. So like I said, 8 out of 10 businesses in Great Britain pay men more. So the barriers. I've got a spiky barriers right there, but a little that's what it's supposed to show. And some holes in there that I seem to have got through, like the Swiss cheese. I feel like I've got through them. What are some of the barriers that you face or your colleagues have faced, or you think still exist? What kind of things? Let's open up the floor. What have we got online? Anyone gonna share some messages online?
I still got hit with it. To begin with, and I've had a very similar situation to Hazel, where I think I've had quite a positive experience all the way through. But my first role was in an engineering role where I'd go out and install and do physical hands-on stuff. But I'd always go out with my sales colleague, and so there was always, it wasn't bleated outright, but there was always the heartbeat to begin with when they came in to talk to us, and you could feel the nod towards the man to start talking about the engineering, and he'd be like, talk to her. So there was that, and then I've been very fortunate coming back after having both my kids have changed company both times. First time I took voluntary redundancy just before I came back after my maternity leave, and the second time when I was pregnant, I had decided I wasn't going to return after my mat leave, so I left before and then joined Network Rail just afterwards. So they weren't plans sidetracked. I had my career progression plans, and it was a bit of juggling. It was just a bit of juggling at the time. So it did affect my career progression slightly, but not massively adversely. And actually, it's turned out to be a positive thing overall. But it was something I had to face.
Yeah.
So it's little barriers, isn't it? My middle daughter, she was doing her subjects for third year, and she chose tech, which I was really delighted about. But my wife was like, "That's a boy subject." So yeah. Not just a boy subject, but a naughty boy subject.
Yes, perception.
This is probably it's putting pegs in holes, isn't it?
Yeah.
People say domestic science, that's a girl subject. No, you'd be some the top chefs that puts out there.
Yeah. I remember Gordon Ramsay. I think his dad wouldn't believe that he was wanted to be a chef. I think he was just like so upset about that. And
But it's just wrong, it's just wrong to pigeonhole things like
Yeah.
that.
crazy. So, what have we got here? What's Graham saying? We're more aware of the benefits. Are there any indicators to show we're heading in the right direction? I think certainly with the pay gap information, if that is reducing, then you've got a good spread across all different roles. So where with Network Rail, I think our pay gap is reduced a lot more, and then looking at the numbers of women that are being brought into the company as well. So certainly I can talk to Network Rail because I know this. I think in Scotland we had we'll talk UK because I don't think I know the statistics well enough for Scotland. But I think there was about 17% of the workforce was women, and then we got up to about 19.4% from quite a aggressive drive. I think that was dented a little bit over the pandemic. I think a lot of women did leave, and there's certainly been a big change for women because of this pandemic. So the World Economic Forum had stated that it's 132 years before the world becomes before we get gender parity. But in 2020, when they published the report, we were 99.5 years away. So we've gone backwards. So it's another 32 years before we get gender parity around the world. And there was a lot of change happening just in general, but women seem to have come out in quite a bad way. So yeah, there's lots of things you can look at, Graham. How do we increase the engagement of the education system to help increase engagement of all young people in STEM subjects? So that is the $1 question. I'll come on to some companies that exist and things that the Scottish Government is doing to improve that, and some of the ways that individuals in this room and online can help with that as well. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I've listed a few barriers here. What have we mentioned already? So society's expectations, families' expectations. Yeah, so you can't do that because you're a girl or that's boy subject. I know some women that I work with who are younger than me and were told that they couldn't do a subject at school, and it was the school that determined that. It wasn't anyone else, it was the school, which I was actually really shocked at. Organisational culture, so perception you won't fit in. Maybe you think, actually, I don't want to go and work in that organisation or that industry because it's all men. I'll only ever see men. I don't want to go and work there. Or it's all women. I don't want to go and do teaching. It's all women. Nursing, whatever you think about, whatever job you think about, what's the image that comes in your head when you do that job? But actually, it's not what you want. That's not what you want to think about. Another barrier to women working in general, or just women in engineering, is childcare. The cost of it and access. Just to put it in perspective, the cost of my childcare was about £43 per day, and that maybe increased by about £1.50 every year when my kids were in nursery. The same nursery costs about £67 a day now. So it's like shot right up, which I don't know, would I have even been able to cover that at the time when my kids were that age? Would have been worth coming back. Maybe there was more push for me to stay at home. And certainly there's been a lot of debate about this in the Westminster government because they're going to be increasing childcare hours. And there's a Conservative MP came out recently. I don't know if you saw the news, but these kind of things catch my eye all the time. Women should be staying at home to look after children. They shouldn't need childcare anyway because they're biologically wired to look after children, which is not true. But it just made me think there's probably quite a few vulnerable women that's really negatively affected. So Conservative MPs said it, and so then their husband or their family has been like, oh well, you should just give up your job, and maybe the job is the one thing that they have that's the freedom in their life. So that's where it can get quite dark when someone says something quite in my eyes flippant. access to the basics. So I don't think I mentioned that I've been on site. I've turned up on site before years and years ago and had to ask for a key to the toilet. So you're right back at school again, asking for permission to go to the toilet. Oh, it's not open because all the men go in and make a mess. Like, they'll just clean it up. And then opening the door and the mop falling on you. So yeah, access to the basics. And then I was talking to Fiona earlier about
Someone holding the door of my toilet.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had a guy on site to hold the door for me because there wasn't women's toilets. I said, you have to go in and make sure there's no one there, and then mind the door just to make sure no one comes in. So yeah.
and yeah, so there's always somebody that's got a toilet story, but I'm sure everybody does working on the railway as well.
That wasn't railway, that was something else.
You could go, you didn't have toilets. Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
We did go into that.
what was the one, the Eurotunnel? I don't think they had toilets, so 10-hour shift, no toilets. That must have been a rag thing. I don't know what people are thinking. So yeah, making sure you've got access to the basics. Returning to work after a career break. There's clearly there are people that will take a career break, whether it's a maternity leave or a complete break from work, and then when they want to return to work, then it's how difficult is that? It's a huge barrier to overcome. Your self-esteem might be low. Your self-esteem might be affected by what other people say in the wherever you are. Barriers, choice. You might not have a choice. You might be trapped, feel trapped, but not talking about the situation as a barrier as well. Always, if you're feeling trapped or if there's something that's not right, speak to somebody about it, because you can get a better perspective, understand. There might be things you're not aware of that you can do. Job adverts. Is your wording inclusive? So if you've ever written a job advert, or if you're looking to recruit people to anything, into the PWI, how are you writing? What language are you using? Are you using images that are images as well that maybe say this is what we are, but actually you want to change things? What drives me nuts is when people say, "Oh, it's the best person for the job got it, or the right person for the job got it." So, but how do you know the right person applied? This person applied because they never looked at the job advert and thought, "Oh no, that's not for me." There are companies about that can help you determine whether the wording that you've got is non-inclusive. But bigger companies will probably have a diversity and inclusion team that can help with that as well. Certainly, if a job said full time, I didn't look at it. So there's probably quite a lot of jobs that I didn't do, or opportunities that I could have taken that I didn't because of the full time. And I never knew that the line manager wasn't going to budge on that. So, and pregnancy and maternity discrimination. So there's some, I've really used that, look at my notes because I've got something statistic that I read that made me go, what? So the Equality and Human Rights Commission did some research, and based on, if they scaled up that research based on the general population, this could mean that as many as 54,000 new mothers are forced out of their job every year in the UK. What? What's going on there? So a number of years ago, I started following a company on social media companies called Pregnant Then Screwed. That company has been on the news quite a bit recently because the Westminster government are looking to increase childcare hours, and they were helping with the debate. So this company exists because they've had to help a lot of women fight in employment tribunals and things. So and they've been around for quite a long time. So it's still happening. Women are losing their jobs, or they're forced out of work. Huge barrier. Okay, so what can you do? What can we do around the table? What can everybody do to change things? So you'll see on the screen, I've got some images there, and hopefully this starts to answer one of your questions, Graham. I noticed that in the chat, you had actually you mentioned there's another barrier can be bias. Yeah, conscious and unconscious, absolutely. And David saying that there's a lack of female role models within our organisation, absolutely. So I know that certainly Network Rail, there's a lot more images of women online. There's images that can be used, but and that's certainly helped. And one of the things that I've noticed being a woman engineer is being asked to do lots of things all the time. So I was the chair of Inspire Scotland, and so lots of people knew my face and would ask me for things. And it got to the point when I finished there, I said, I'm not doing anything for a long, long time. And this is the first thing that I've been asked to do. And I was quite happy to do that, but I needed to take a break because everybody wants a piece of you. Come International Women's Day, I've got people asking me to do things, maybe give them a quote or do a video. Then International Women in Engineering Day, I could probably be at 8 places at once. So yeah, having female role models is one thing. So yeah, what can everybody do? How can we remove these barriers? So like I say, on the images there are myself doing some volunteer work. So volunteer to inspire the next generation. Become a STEM ambassador. You can sign up to become a STEM ambassador online. Bit of training that protects you, protects the children. And there's a STEM ambassador hub that gives you access to lots of things that are happening in schools that need to help, need people to support with. Volunteer with Primary Engineer. So Primary Engineer is a company that I think was established in about 2005, 2006, and they do a lot of things to make engineering accessible to children from age 3 up to 19. They do competitions, they've got lots of things going on, and they find that they've got a 50-50 split, 50 gender split in their activities, which is great, and then it starts to drop off. But Primary Engineer are involved quite heavily with kids. One of their competitions they do is Leaders Awards. If you were an engineer, what would you do? If you've got a problem in your life, how would you solve it using engineering? And so kids create something, submit it, and then you can see the top left, top right. You can see me there, right at the back of the picture, grading some of the designs. Anyone can help with the grading days, and there's still some grading days happening this month. So definitely go along and help with that.
Next Friday.
What's that?
Well, next Friday.
Okay. If you've got staff or employee networks, join one or more, or attend some D&I events, find out about other people that are not like you. International Women's Day, International Women in Engineering Day exists, so you can educate yourselves, read about what's happening and what works for people, what are people doing to increase gender diversity. I've mentioned before using inclusive language in your job adverts. Understand your organisation's flexible working policy. So I said that I worked part-time, and I actually managed to get 2 promotions while working part-time, which I think was first one that I got was a bit of a jaw drop moment for a lot of people in the business. They're like, you can't do that. You can't get a promotion. You have to work full-time. That seemed to be the perception of people. But it depends who you work for, I think. So I don't think that's a Network Rail thing. I think that's anywhere. So there'll be some people that are really inflexible that way. But your organisations will have flexible working policies. So have a look at it, figure out what it's saying. Engage with organisations that provide support guidance, and look what are other countries doing, what other organisations doing. There's at the moment in Britain, I think 16.5% of engineers are women, but in other countries it's a lot higher. So what are they doing to encourage more women into engineering? Who's winning awards? What are they doing? What's good? Do some reverse mentoring. If there's someone that you know in there that you want to learn more about their journey, speak to them, become they can become your reverse mentor. And coaching. There's lots of companies out there that do coaching to help, and also internally in companies as well. So nearly there, nearly at the end. Last couple of slides. This slide is some of the companies that have, or organisations that I've mentioned already. Inspire, the top right there, that's our gender equality network in Network Rail, and that's been a huge source of help for me, and I think lots of others. There is Women in Rail, Women's Engineering Society. WISE is Women in Science and Engineering. STEM Learning is where I would go to become a STEM ambassador and get information from there. Equate Scotland works with the Scottish Government, and they do returner work programmes, just check their notes. They advertise jobs in STEM, do some mentoring, have awards, yeah, lots of different things. There's lots going on, and it's clearly a hot topic. Lots of things happening. Couple of other companies there, Equal Engineers, Pregnant and Screwed, and Find Your Flex. They're companies that I came across on social media. I follow them, I like what they're doing, and I've learned some things that they do to improve things for women and people that are looking, that are different from what we've had before. Find Your Flex is a company that helped mummies. I think they were mummies.co.uk or something at one point, and it was women that were trying to find a job that was flexible around their children, and it's just expanded. So they had daddies as well, and then the Find Your Flex. Certainly a lot of companies I think will probably be looking at them for advice post-COVID. And finally, the bottom 6 items there are coaches. So coaching organisations, these are people that I've had direct contact with, or I've had recommended to me directly. Must do a shout out to Energised Performance. That's my best friend from school. So she runs her own coaching company. She's done a TEDx talk as well about overcoming adversity. So big shout out to my pal Kim. And finally, some useful links. I've got a lot more than that. So the screen is not sharing my correct thing. So loads of useful links there. I'm hoping to Greg, that you can share the slides to everybody, so you've got access to lots of the links and information there. What I would say, I'm just going to check that I've covered everything. Yeah, so Graham, about your comment about STEM and getting children involved, young people who attend STEM outreach events are more likely to know what engineers do, and so they're more likely to be engaged in what's engaged in engineering. And so they're definitely, I would say, if you're going to do one thing, change one thing, inspire our next generation, definitely. So I've talked about my background. We've looked about the history, legislation changes, talked about society's expectations and organisational culture, and some organisations that exist to support in improving diversity and inclusion and gender equality. Really pleased to have been here. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm hoping it was interactive enough. But should we look at the questions to see if there's anything else that?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
thank you.
well, firstly, thanks very much, Hazel. We'll do a proper vote of thanks at the end, right? It was magic.
Thank you.
So just really, if anyone in the room or online has got any further questions or just things they want to discuss or raise, I think we've captured the stuff online, I think, so far.
I'm going to start sharing.
That's all we'll go in. Hey, Graham, you got your hand up. Do you want to just come off?
Yeah, it was just to differentiate what the question about the education system. So I've been a STEM ambassador. I see the value of engaging with young people and helping to help them understand. It's more about what can the education system provide? What can we persuade the education system to do to support, potential budding engineers? Because putting it onto organisations like STEM is great, but it's how do we influence the government, and how do we influence the councils to increase the availability of STEM subjects to especially primary children, I think, because that's where we can make a difference.
So I think there's already a lot of work being done in that space. The Scottish Government has a STEM strategy, so it'll be worth having a look to see some of the details on that, and whether there's things that you think are missing or could be improved upon. I'm not quite, Education Scotland's another organisation that would probably benefit from conversation about that, but I think I'm not sure. I don't know. Personally, I don't know what more we could do just now.
I don't know what there is. I don't know, and it's not a direct answer to the question, and you're probably aware of it as a STEM ambassador anyway, but some of the programmes, I think it's through STEM, but they actually are for partnering the teachers up with the STEM ambassador or providing better education, acknowledging the fact that. So we're talking about this from our point of view, that we're trying to make a gender equal area here. It's a similar situation for primary schools, but the other way around. And so I think it's acknowledged that sometimes it's outside of the comfort zone. And so there are programmes, I think it's through the STEM ambassadors, trying to pair up and provide some of that support for it, for the teachers as well. But I know it's not directly answering the question as in
No, but at least it shows that the education system's engaging in a positive way, I think, with STEM and other organisations. So thank you. Thanks both.
Anything else? Is there anything that really shocked you? You'd mentioned already that this.
You did shock me out there, yeah. And how do we get more people to come into the engineering industry, regardless of gender, race, all these things? How do we get good people to come in? I'm speaking as somebody who has mentored a lot of young engineers, including some extremely capable young women. How do we get them to come into the industry in the first place?
I think that's $1 million question, and we've got, like I said, from when I was at uni to now, that everything's changed so dramatically, and then we've got this massive problem where we're trying to make sure that the world can sustain human life. We've got all these massive problems to resolve. I don't know.
It's a really difficult one. When I went to uni as a mature student in the 1980s, there were 3 young ladies of my year at uni. One was there because their father wanted them to be an engineer, but she didn't have it in her heart. She changed career. She became a very successful IT engineer. Civil engineering wasn't her thing, but she became posted in her planner. The other 2 went on to have really, really successful careers. But that was 3 out of 60.
Mm-hmm.
The metrics have changed since then, the ratios have changed since then, but how can we make it better?
Can I share a statistic from the 1970s?
Yeah.
When I went to Strathclyde University to do electrical and electronic engineering, 115 in my first year in class. There was one.
1 to 3. It's better.
Yeah, we're getting there, obviously.
I think when I went to university, this was last year, a couple of years ago, but there was about 1 in 5, 1 in 6 out of a cohort of 200 and something, 220. So it's like more than 3.
Better than the 1% from 1977.
Yeah.
But it's not good enough, though, is it?
No.
It really isn't, because there are so many really capable people out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it might shock you. I studied in India, so it's usually the civil engineering is dominated by girls.
Okay. Wow.
More than 50%.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't know whether they will all go to jobs, but certainly they go to software jobs. At the end,
Yeah.
because
What's
that
the
seems to be
difference
very
there?
attractive.
Definitely a societal thing. It's the same partly in Scandinavian countries where there's a bigger uptake of engineering courses by female candidates.
It'd be interesting to see by type of engineering as well, because in our workplace, there's not, it's definitely not enough overall, but civil engineering tends to have more women. There's tracker just can't get in. Women to come out and track. We had a few and they left for different reasons, but so it'd be interesting to dive down deeper and see what disciplines are they going to. But
Well, I was wobbling when I applied. I was wobbling as to whether to do engineering or music, right? And these programs we've been talking about where you go into schools and do things, I signed up for a few of them and I went in one of them and I thought engineering was civil, electrical and mechanical. And I'm now chartered mechanical engineer, but I thought mechanical engineering was too dry, and it's only through going in these courses. It wasn't actually doing the engineering, it was talking to my peers. And I did product design engineering at uni, which was the right thing for me at uni. Absolutely not what I am. I'm no CAD engineer at all. But it turns out I'm a mechanical engineer at heart, but I wouldn't have applied if I was doing mechanical engineering. I just wouldn't have done it.
And what you've just said there is that talking to your peers, so like talking to people, this has can have such an impact. You know, you can like create so many different programs and so many different events and whatever, with bells and whistles. But if you have that like one-on-one connection or just the conversation.
But at that point in time, meeting those peers, so I was very fortunate in the course that I did. Wound up being one where I travelled to it, and so there was 2 Scottish girls and 18 English girls, and it was because the English girls were doing their A-levels and were applying for lots. They were having to look further ahead, and I'm not saying that the English education system is better than the Scottish, because that's a different discussion. I've got different views on that. Let's not get into it. But they were further down the road of thinking about it. So if I hadn't gone to that and hadn't spoken to the girls from England who were doing it differently, probably wouldn't.
I got into it because I like maths and physics, but I didn't want to do pure maths or pure physics. And somebody just said, what about engineering? I was like, what's that? I was probably quite old when somebody said that to me. It's like the career advice I got, you fill out everything to say what you're going to be. Said I should be an air traffic controller. And you'd be a good air traffic controller. So like the signaller, I guess. Like, it's like, what's that? Anyway.
Jim, you don't have any, I don't know, I suppose your figures, but is it discussed at the PWI, inside the bigger meetings, like what's their figures like?
Regularly discussed. I have a membership committee meeting tomorrow morning. And it is something that we are actively looking at, is the proportion of female registered engineers.
Yeah.
And something that we're very much promoting. And I have to say, as a reviewer, I'm seeing more coming forward. In the last 12 months, 2 out of 4 reviews that I've conducted have been with women. Successfully, I guess, and really 2 very strong candidates. But yeah, it's something that's actively looked at.
Okay, David's put something on there. A recent talk I saw with Jordan Peterson where he observed that a fundamental psychological difference between men and women was that on average men have a tendency to be more interested in things and women more interested in people. Said that in Scandinavian countries, huge amounts of efforts have been made for many years and struggle to shift the ratio.
I don't like him, so
Do I what?
I like Jordan Peterson. I think he would start the what's that program on TV that's terrifying? The one where the women get persecuted. The Handmaid's Tale. That's like his fantasy. He wrote that. Or listen to what he says.
Sorry, John, I've got to say who.
He's one of these alt-right people.
So not worth watching.
No.
Because I'll avoid.
It is an interesting point, and I've not looked at lots of different countries and how they they're different, but I do know that there are countries that have a better gender split. So you wonder what's different in those countries. And I get that yeah, it's maybe men interested in things, but I guess like the kind of thing that Fiona and I do isn't about the things. It's like the people and how they interact with the things, but knowing about how the things work is a big benefit to our jobs. We're both in assurance and auditing and continuous improvement. So we still have that basic engineering, but you've got that skill, but you've got a different skill as well. So it's massive. It's massive. But hopefully today I've shared some of the barriers that I've maybe not dealt with that have been removed from me, but other peers have. So I don't have huge crazy stories, but I know women that are my age do, which has shocked me because I didn't think that my generation was really had some scary stories to tell. I found my picture. Yeah. There we go. That was what was supposed to be up when I was telling you about my phone. Oh, that's funny. That's me at 2.
Clearly an engineer through and through. I could tell just there.
Yeah. Okay.
Just receiving David's writing for you.
Yep.
So, you want some up here after?
Graham Smith's writing. You better be writing something, Graham. Writing.
I'll just come on instead. It was just to say thank you very much, Hazel, for the talk and for the Institute for hosting. So, and I need to drop off now. So, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Graham. I may not have answered Graham's questions fully, but I guess I don't have the answers, and I don't know if anyone does have that golden answer. So that's the. So I like to share all this stuff to like bring all our heads together. What is the best way? What would work? What's going to work? Yeah.
Yeah, just David's last comment there. Most important thing is that the barriers aren't there for those women who have the passion for engineering.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you.
Any last comments online or in the room? Anyone had anything? Okay, this brings us to the vote of thanks. So I'll keep it quite brief because we've kind of talked during it, Hazel, but thanks for an excellent presentation. Thanks for agreeing to come along. Loads of good stuff. As you say, I don't think anyone's got the total answer yet, but it will help us hopefully in terms of the PWI and also in our respective businesses as well, to try and look at getting more women into engineering. Amazing statistics you showed us, which it was funny looking at the years on them, thinking it's not that long ago, really, is it? You think these things were a lifetime ago.
We are ancient as well.
No, we are. Thanks for that. Thanks for
That's what my
that.
kids keep telling me. Because I had no phone when I was growing up.
But yeah, really quite a shocker actually on that front. But it definitely is a real challenge. Just checking my notes there for the rail industry, and you know, it's funny when you read out those Arcada statistics. The Arcades are super keen, aren't they? And I don't know if that was just a small sector of it, or if we are guilty of having such bad stats. But it's something we really try and work hard at. So it'll be interesting to look at the things you said. You know, what can we do? And now I'll look at job adverts differently, even, and say, are we doing something? Are we missing something? Because we're absolutely super keen to try and welcome everyone to the company. We're big on diversity and inclusion, and yeah, we're still kind of failing in that area a wee bit. So, but yeah, no, thanks very much for that. Yeah, I normally do typing in my notes while I'm doing, so I can't even read half my own handwriting now. So no, it's my fault. So I think all that remains is just for me to ask everyone to thank Hazel in the usual manner. Thanks very much. Thanks. shut down the online part. Last chance for anyone to add anything before we go. Yeah.
Okay.